fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire.
Fuel, the podcast for fixing underperformance and evolving leadership within the automotive industry. Fuel is bringing you the latest in proven strategies and techniques that can take your service department to the next level.
Hey, welcome to Fuel. My name's Alex Keith. I'm going to be your host. With me today, I got James Grogan. Say hey to the lovely people out there, James.
Hey, appreciate everybody tuning in.
So, James, I got a pretty interesting topic I want to discuss with you today. It's talking about price. Price. You know, dealerships, stores, independent shops, everything out there. It's so hard to kind of tune into the right price for your market and the right price for your area. And some of the other stuff we talk about is how do you know if it's the right price? How do you know if it's exactly what you need to charge? Not just to be competitive in our markets, but to be profitable, you know, to be able to progress our business and to be able to move forward with increasing our profits overall. What do you think?
So would you call that perfect pricing?
I think I would.
I think we should coin that phrase.
I should coin the old perfect pricing phrase.
Yeah, I think that's always going to be a challenge. How do I, charge the most I can while being fair to the business, fair to my employees, and fair to my clients, customers, right? So, last time I checked, none of us are part of a nonprofit. So, we're in business to make money, obviously, but within the same thing, we never want to overcharge. So, how do we do that? I think that's definitely an interesting topic. Definitely something I think that is a struggle for a lot of people because it is a moving target. Just when you think you got it down, the market shifts.
Yeah, it just takes a quick kind of a turn. I would say a good word for when the market makes a shift or a turn, it starts to evolve with kind of what's going on around it. So expanding off of that perfect pricing, how would we define that? So let's say perfect pricing to me would be the ability to charge the maximum that we could charge, but also have the least amount of negative impact to our customers. Something that's fair, but something that keeps us profitable, keeps us moving, evolving with the market, but it's not any sticker shock. We're not, like you said, impacting our customers so far in a negative value that they have to say decline the service or decline the job and move on somewhere else, especially now with all the internet and being able to just look up on Google and do some price shopping on certain things.
Yeah, I think perfect pricing, you hear quantity over quality or quality over quantity. And I think perfect pricing goes, why can't we have them both?
Right.
Why can't we have quality pricing with quantity of customers? And why do we have to choose one or the other?
Right. And how do you start to find the sweet spot? How do you start to develop a way to be perfectly priced? But I would also say how to stay perfectly priced. I just do the one fix and we'll look at it a year from now. Like, how do we stay perfectly priced? What are some things that we can do? I'd say from a GM ownership level all the way to a service manager, even a lane manager.
Yeah, I think that, the biggest thing is, like you said, how do we stay perfectly priced? In other words, it's a consistent movement, right? It's not like you get there and then you're there forever. I almost equate it to, kind of anything you want to do, anything you strive for, right? Whether it's, physical health or learning a trade or a hobby or something like that. It's not like as soon as you get it, there's nothing else to do. There's nothing else to learn. Like, no, you have to keep growing. You have to keep going back to it. You have to keep reviewing it. So it's interesting you say from the GM level up, because I think a lot of times for a GM, it's a little daunting, especially sometimes going back into the fixed ops and going, well, hey, we need to tweak this, we need to tweak that, because do we really know, right? I think we rely on our service managers. Coming from my background, it was sometimes going back into the service department going, hey, it's time to change our price. Well, you might as well throw a hand grenade in the pool and walk away, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's here we go again. You get the standard. I guess we're not selling any more of those when we start to change our price. So I think, like one of the methods that was always kind of used is that phone call method, the phone tree, where you just kind of call around and you kind of start to find out pricing on certain things. And, if you don't understand the impact that sometimes just being the same as other people in your area can have on your business, because everybody's roughly different. can really play out to what I like to think of a race to the bottom, right? So if it's a race to the bottom, then it's like, all right, what is that? Like, what does that race to the bottom mean? Does it mean like we're just charging the cheapest price because everybody else is? Well, it could relate to effective labor rate. It could relate to labor gross profit and things of that nature. So when we're talking about calling around, that's getting a reference point, in my opinion. Not just calling around getting prices, it's calling around getting a reference point for what we need to do to stay profitable within the market.
I think back to those old phone calls, and why did we ever make those phone calls?
I don't know.
Right?
I mean, how easy was it to pick it up?
But why was the reason we did it is because we had Mr. Jones or Mrs. Jones come in on their vehicle, right? The advisor tried to sell them something, right? And what did they say? Well, the guy down the street's only charging X.
That's right.
Right. So what happens? The advisor comes in and says, "Hey, we're overcharging the customer. We're the guy down the street, he's doing alignment for $89 and we're at 109. Well, so what's that first thing we do? Well, we just pick up the phone. We call him. Right. And it was always reactive.
Yeah.
It was very rarely proactive. Right. And we would call that guy and go, well, he is charging $89.99. Okay, we need to reevaluate our price. And that goes right in line, like you said, with the race to the bottom. Well, if that's Joe's garage and he's got 2 bays and he's got 5 cars that he's working on that are also for sale, right? And he's got a 4-hour wait to do the alignment, and I'll call you when it gets done. And, you got smudgy fingerprints on the steering wheel when he's done. Does that really compete to what a dealer is doing? And does that 89, 95 or 59 or whatever alignment really compare to the 109 that's done on, the brand new Hunter machine done by a certified technician? And so I always thought the phone calls was kind of funny because we never just did them. It was always reaction.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is when you start to make those phone calls and you hear some of these prices, you're like, how can they charge that? Like, how can they charge that? And there's a lot of different factors that go into play with that. One of the things that, with your mystery shop that you get with Dynatron is a huge look at people that you are trying to mystery shop that are down the street from you, but also an understanding. It's like, that doesn't seem like a realistic price maybe, or it just seems like how can they charge that? And so a lot of times it comes into play, like understanding perfect price for us means that sometimes we may be one of the higher priced people in the area. And just because you're higher priced doesn't mean that you don't have opportunity to sell. I mean, are you selling the value of that service? So you go back to the 2-bay garage. Well, I mean, let's face it. I mean, I'm not dissing any independents out there, but there are some independents out there that are a little bit behind on their times. I mean, they've got that 1970s candy machine that may or may not have candy in it from the 1970s.
Some dealers that still have that too. So be careful.
It's
got the Mike and Ike's in the waiting area that, somebody they haven't even stirred. I think they're just one large Mike and Ike now. So
it's one of those things where you see some of this outdated to an extent, some of this outdated where the dealership is trying to evolve. They have certain things they have to stand by the franchise as well. So where the independent shop probably does a good job, we can promote more value, more oversight, and we've got a lot more things that we can offer to the customer as far as the customer experience. So I think that goes into perfect pricing as well.
You just said something and it resonates, and I know it's coming up on some future podcasts. So obviously click the subscribe button, be on the lookout. Shameless plug, sorry, but it's coming up. But perfect pricing has a lot to do with value. And while it's perfect pricing, it is really all about value. And we'll talk more about how do we drive value in the service side of the dealership on our later episodes. I think it's episode 9 or 8. But really, mystery shop, phone call, using the things that we have and the tools we have. I think it still goes back to proactivity. Are we doing it to be proactive?
Mm-hmm.
Are we doing it because we got a bad survey? Are we doing it because somebody said no because so-and-so's done it? Or are we consistently doing it as part of a process to make sure we stay perfectly priced?
Correct. It's a process.
Should be, right? But I think just like anything else, right? How do we do it? And we'll talk about that. and I think next episode we're going to get into some specifics,
Mm-hmm.
But one, how do we do it? Two, when we do it, when we are perfectly priced, how do we ensure that we're following that, right? So not only do we have a process in place on how to be perfect priced, but do we have a process in place to ensure that we're actually collecting that price?
And I think that's where analytical technology has to be a must. You have to have an oversight process. With the EBIS tool, we have our daily emails for compliance with pricing that we've set. But I think consistency and understanding, when is a discount, when is an adjustment needed for that sale versus making is it always the thing we go to make somebody happy? Why do we always have to throw money at the customer just to make them happy? Because that's just starts to perpetuate a mentality that, hey, he who screams the loudest always gets the discounts to an extent. So I think, analytical data is going to help you dial that in. So part of the perfect pricing process is A, know where your market's at by phone call to mystery shop. You're still going to have that mentality. B, understanding your perfect price is saying, okay, profitability. What's the maximum I could charge here? So I can retain an effective labor rate, retain labor gross profit when I promote these sales, not just a race to the bottom. I think is the biggest things for establishing where you're at with perfect pricing. Now, compliance and oversight is going to be huge. Using technology or using methods to help understand and have those conversations with your people when they deviate, when they discount. Does it make sense, and why are we doing that?
There's a saying that I've learned a long time ago, and I say it, and every time we talk about discounts, it rings in my head, and it says, where there's an absence of value, price is the only concern. And, when we're perfectly priced and we've done our phone calls, we've done our mystery shop, we used our analytical data, and we're discounting not in the sense of we sent out a coupon to drive traffic, but discounting as in we are literally making an adjustment to a single item, right?
Mm-hmm.
How often is that because we just haven't built value, right? And if we're perfectly priced, that shouldn't be very often. Now, granted, are discounts the nature of the beast in the business? I think we all know that sometimes it are, right? Would I rather have X% of something or 100% of nothing? Well, I'd rather have X% of something.
Right.
But if we're priced perfectly and we're building value, we should be able to minimize those. I think the other biggest thing with, being perfectly pricing is, how often are we doing it? Right? We have a process, we have oversight. Cool. How often should all that happen? Right? And, there's some best practices out there. I think everybody looks at it a little different, but, I would kind of lean on, your thoughts, Alex, on, what do we see as kind of the best way to move forward where, okay, I am perfectly priced. I've listened to the Fuel podcast, episode 2, 3, and 4, and I've implemented some stuff. Once again, shameless plug. Sorry about that. And I've implemented those processes for my repair and maintenance and discounting and all that. But how often should I review that?
Well, I think, we used to say annually, once a year. But as we see, things have sped up a lot over time, especially with technology convenience, things that we do for the customers. So I think a good process to be able to reevaluate your business is every 4 to 6 months. Every 4 to 6 months kind of gives you an idea of a trend. Are we still in a good spot? Or do we need to make adjustments based on evolutions of the market? If you could change your price 2 months and then take a look at it, and the whole market could be changed due to whatever evolution takes place, as far as pricing, parts, things of that nature. Just the overall, like what we saw with some of the inflation that we were dealing with. I mean, it's just a good time to start understanding what keeps us in that slot that we're retaining a good effective labor rate, retaining a good labor gross profit, and then establishing basically where those goals are as well. It's like, how do I know what a good labor gross profit is? How do I know what a good effective labor rate is? And that's where you can kind of get into the data a little bit more and start to discuss that. I always played the 75 rule. That just kind of was the mentality we did. You need to be above $75 in effective labor rate for most items. And then most items you're going to be definitely higher. And then you need to be around 75% labor gross profit or possibly higher, depending on what the service is and what's given to you. So that's just some things that you take away from the process, but you need to reevaluate that every 4 to 6 months because, again, we're doing our calls like once a quarter, and you're looking at your daily reports, you're looking at your reporting for compliance to hold that process. But if it allows you to get a step behind, we got to have a good process to say, hey, listen, we're going to look at this again on this date, and we're going to reevaluate it. If we look good, great, keep moving. If we don't look good and we need to make some adjustments, let's make those adjustments and set a timeline to implement those adjustments. Good stuff.
So if I'm hearing you right, perfect pricing, right? The most we can charge a client that our market will bear without any impact to our clientele or client count.
I'd say the least amount of negative impact. Anytime you change price, anytime you change price, you're going to get some residual impact of somebody noticing or somebody upset about it or somebody not wanting to push it and things of that nature. I'd say with the least amount of negative impact.
And then you're saying that we should review that every 4 to 6 months.
Yes.
And then one tip is the rule of 75, right? Make sure your overall effective labor rate's over $75. Obviously, depending on market, please move that, right? If you're in some major metro areas and you know very well that your effective labor rate should be 120, please don't say the fuel guys told you $175.
We say it's a benchmark. It's just an understanding. If we aren't hitting these two areas, why aren't we hitting those two areas? And then let's say you are at 75, or let's say you're above. Well, is that the maximum? Are you at the maximum? Are you doing the best that you can do with what you have? So that's going to be key.
So price perfectly, set your price, make sure it's perfect using some analytical stuff, phone call, mystery shop, technology, maintain your compliance, and then evaluate it every 4 to 6 months.
Yep. It's simple. Become perfect price, monitor it, oversight, and then set a timeline to be able to review it every 4 to 6 months is a good place to start.
So one last question, and because we kind of went over this, how long would that take somebody?
So with the analytical tool and with a good coach that helps you walk through the tool, honestly, you could reevaluate your entire business within 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay. So the I'm too busy excuse should never.
No, we should be able to carve out 15 minutes of a window to be able to sit down and navigate the tool, get the information in front of us and start making decisions, not thinking about it. Not we may go to this. No, this is a decision we're looking to go with. And this is why.
Gotcha. So 1% of their time each month,
maybe.
So that probably a third of a percent of their time every quarter.
Yeah, a third. Perfect. Okay. All right. Well, hey, listen, we're kind of getting to that time. We're going to wrap this episode up. James, as always, I appreciate you coming on. And for our listeners, we really appreciate your feedback. So hit the subscribe button. We're going to have an email comment section down below. Feel free to send in your emails, make any comments. Today we went over that pricing optimization topic, clearly outlining a couple things that we need to look at, looking at, what are we doing? How are we doing it? And how can we get better? If you need to reach out, please, like I said, you got the email down at the bottom and be listening for our next podcast. We're going to be talking about labor matrixing, how to perform some expert tuning to better your business and what can labor matrices do for you in your store, which one's the right one. So be sure to hit that like and follow and be looking for the oncoming episodes of the Fuel Podcast to drop. And, like I said, James, join me next time.
Yeah, I will come back, especially, labor matrices. I always like that. It can get a little saucy. Not everybody is a true believer. So I think it always is a great conversation to talk about because there's a lot of money can be made.
Yes.
But got to have the right mindset. So I'm excited for episode 2. I think we laid a great foundation in episode 1 for people to start to think about how this can impact their business. I think next episode, we're going to give them some tools.
Absolutely.
To even do that further.
Stuff. Yeah, start getting to the fun stuff. All right. We'll see you again. And again, I'm Alex Keith with Fuel Podcast. Talk to you soon.